I have a question. I want you to ask yourself, do you see yourself as the start and end of progress? Do you constantly think about how you're going to suck it up because if you don't, you'll ruin it for everybody else? Do you withdraw alone when you struggle so you don't feel burdened or you don't feel like you are a burden? Do you feel as if you must appear happy or always agree to get people to like you? Viewing yourself as the problem can stem from the idea that we have to look a certain way to be accepted. If we aren't the way that people want us to be, this is the thought we may have. If we aren't the way people want us to be, we might lose friends, we might lose jobs, and people may not like us. And sometimes that idea is scarier than being truthful with ourselves. The truth is, life is full of unknowns, and holding yourself to a really high standard isn't realistic. And it actually ends up being self-sabotage, because if you continually believe that you are the problem, you may start acting as if you are, which probably is not true. So instead of sucking it up, I encourage honesty, and I think it's okay to do what you need to do and be honest about not liking it. So I guess what I'm saying is that self-compassion isn't about not being strong or not pushing for your goals or dreams because it's difficult. I think it's about being honest about how you feel about the challenges you face. Knowing that it's okay to not feel brave when you're going to go and do something new. I want to talk about why self-compassion is important, and it has to do with something called the frequency illusion. And the frequency illusion is a psychological phenomenon that means we become hyper aware of something we think is important. And so I don't know if you've ever saw a car one day that caught your eye and then suddenly you see it everywhere. That's the frequency illusion. And what happens is when we hyper focus on our failures, we start to notice them way more than we do anything else we do right, And I think everybody can relate to one time you mess up sticks in your memory far more than all of the things you might have gotten right. And it's easy to understand because we like to avoid pain. And so we want to avoid painful memories and painful scenarios. However, when we focus on surviving, right? So focus on avoiding pain or fearful situations, our brains are not free to be at ease, to relax, to think of solutions. And the truth is, when we're going to face unknown challenges or difficult things, we actually want to be relaxed and at ease and able to attack those problems with our best brains and not our fearful survival brains. So when you're worried about safety, right, it's hard to be creative. When we're in this state of survival, it's hard to make decisions. It's hard to be who all we want to be when we're constantly anxious. In fact, for me, when I was anxious or when I deal with anxiety, it makes my world smaller. Whenever I give in and I run away from what's scaring me instead of confronting the actual anxiety and overcoming what is giving me that fear or problem. What this comes down to is that when you focus on yourself as the problem, when you talk down to yourself and bully yourself, you're creating an environment of survival, because getting things right isn't just about successfully completing a task. It becomes about proving your self-worth. But if you have compassion for yourself and you understand that you're a human being, then you're free to make mistakes. You're free to make choices, better ones the next time, because you don't have to live up to this impossible standard that you've probably set up for yourself or even had someone put on you. Now, the reality is some people struggle with self-compassion because they haven't seen it modeled. And if you haven't experienced compassion or seen it modeled, it's very difficult to unlearn the habit of talking down to yourself. It's not uncommon for us to learn our self-talk from how we saw other adults or parents speak to themselves. Many times we may forget that the way we speak to ourselves, the way we think about ourselves comes out through our speech, and little ones pick that up and they begin to model their self-speech to it. In fact, I've seen my daughter look in the mirror the same way I do, and that really showed me like, oh, she's watching everything I do. And that's going to become some of the way she understands the world around her, including herself. If you are around people who are extremely hard on themselves and you find yourself being the same way, it's very good odds that that's where you picked it up from and have possibly enforced it. But the great thing is that our brains continue to grow. We're not stuck. And I just want you to hear that. You're not stuck. If you have a certain habit or pattern, you can get help. You can move past it. You can move forward. But you do have to do work to get there. And also, I just want to remind you that having self-compassion isn't just for you. The way you relate to yourself is the way that you'll relate to other people. So having compassion for yourself will help you to be compassionate and empathetic towards other people. Often just leave it there. And if you choose to work on having better self-compassion, the little ones around you, whether it's your kids, your nephews, your nieces, your students, they're going to pick up on it too. I know this for a fact because I see my daughter, when she hurts herself, I stop and I ask, are you okay? And I wait and I say, are you okay? And I watch her play with her baby doll and she does the same thing. So she's watching and picking up, and she's only one. She's picking up, oh, let me see if the baby is okay. So yeah, if you start to work on you, it goes so far beyond you. It just starts with you.